Hello there, everybody, and my name's Alex Davis, coordinator of the UK Ghost Story Festival. Delighted to be joined today by Dr. Rachel Knightley, who is a fantastic author, coach, writing tutor, lecturer, many fantastic talents, and delighted to be welcome her along to the Ghost Story Festival for a panel and a workshop on the Saturday of the event. Thank you so much for joining us, Rachel.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, and I love that mug, by the way. Just have the vegetarian vampire duck. That's really suitable.
He is in many ways the answer to why I do a lot of what I do. And I think I'm only realizing that now.
Yes.
Who are your role models as a child? The vegetarian vampire.
Yeah, someone that I grew up with, duck in it. That's wonderful stuff. Wonderful stuff.
I'm
Um,
now vegan, but I probably never have made it in spite of dairy intolerance unless my partner was. But yeah, vegetarian vampire in my soul.
fantastic. And well, thank you for joining us there. And I wanted to just ask a few questions about sort of writing before we get more into kind of the things at the festival itself. Now, you're sort of an author in many forms. Read a lot of short stories. I think short stories is a form that I love and a form that goes so well with the ghost story. I just wondered if you'd mind telling us a bit more about your new collection that's not too long out, Beyond Glass.
Not. Oh, Beyond Glass came out in 2021. My new
Right.
collection will be out later this year.
This is going well.
That's all right. The first collection, Beyond Glass, came out during lockdown, and that was something that evolved from meeting Steve after I'd been in Uncertainties Volume 3, edited by Linda Rucker, which was a wonderful experience. And that was my second horror story of any kind that I'd had published. And something that's going to come up a lot in the workshop and why I'm interested in the things I'm interested in is in previous eras of my life, I would have told you I didn't like horror. And realizing now that that was never true and the whole irony of that, what that was really about is I don't like body horror. And I did not manage to appreciate that all the Gothic literature I'd studied during my BA and indeed my MA and pretty much was writing by the time I was doing my PhD is about the things that you don't look at, the corners of your mind where you go, oh, I'm not supposed to, or that's difficult or scary. And now, as a professional coach for business and personal individuals, teams, what everything I do in my life is about is realizing it's okay to think and feel all the things we do. It's all about how we communicate, how honest we are about our objectives. So I guess you could say ghost stories and my theatre background around objectives and directing, it all sort of came together in those ways that it really is about the parts of your mind that maybe you veer away from, and actually when you look into that dark corner, instead of being too scared to look into that dark corner, you get to know yourself so much better. So at the risk of jumping to another question and coming around again, a lot of what I will do at the Ghost Story Festival brings those writing and life confidence exercises together. It gets people tuned into their curiosity rather than their fear.
Fantastic stuff. That sounds like a really exciting session as well.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Come
no,
and
it sounds
play.
great. Yeah, absolutely, most definitely.
Good.
And I obviously kind of written a lot of short stories in particular. I just wanted to ask, why is it you think the ghost story works so well in that form? I think you think back to so many of those kind of well-established and sort of best-known names in the field. So many are short stories. So what do you think it is about the short form and the ghost story that fit together so nicely?
I think it really does fit together so well. And I think the way that our psychologies work is an image will stay with us. An image will be an essential truth to us. And the short story is uniquely placed, I would say, to have depth. And it's not like one blink and you're out. It's not quite like flash fiction, but the way that, for example, my earliest memory is the entire world doing that because it was my father lifting me up by my ankles. That is my earliest memory of the world. Okay. And there's a couple of images in it of the room that I was in. It was in a different country to the one I now live in. It was things like that. But I've got that access to an image. And I think when I look at a lot of the stories that I love, what it's doing is it is questioning your perception. I think a lot around that we talk about weird fiction and we talk about uncertainty. It's again, what if, which is the beginning of all writing, the beginning of all exploration and versions of ourselves. So yeah, I would say that the short story does enough that we can focus on the image, but we're still going to float away possibly before we're ready to leave. You know, we don't get to stay there so long. And
Mm.
that is both how reality often is, but also dreamlike.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Yes.
Mm.
I was saying this to someone the other day, that very point of like stories, for the most part, probably end neatly. Like life never kind of stories from your life never quite end
Mm.
neatly. There's no kind of neat resolution on things, is there?
You establish your own beginning, middle, and end
Yeah.
when you're constructing a narrative. That's what you do. So to talk about the first collection, Beyond Glass, the stalker story is based on something autobiographical, and what happened was the person that was about, and this isn't quite what happens in the story, but just to explain how it grew into that, that person saw me as the epitome of evil because I was Jewish. She was a lifelong anti-Semite. And the man that she considered hers had decided he wanted to be with me. I want to say this is not the current partner. This is
Mm.
a previous era of my universe, to mix metaphors. And what I found so interesting about that was that she's a physically violent, history of physical violence, anti-Semite. She represents all that is evil to me. I represent all that is evil to her. And even as this was going on in my personal life, there's the writer side in you going, I can't not think about that. That's interesting. And, I
Mm.
wasn't ready to write about that instantly. But
Yeah.
there are things throughout our lives that we can revisit, and there will be themes that whisper to us along the way. And, that concept of what is evil and who am I, and, that chimes with things earlier in my life. And you decide what you're making your beginning, middle, and end of a narrative for now. But I'm not the first to say we never get to write the end.
No, no,
Unless
very
we're
true.
very quick, unless we're very, very quick,
Yeah,
very
yeah,
eloquent.
yeah. Really get on the case. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yes.
You were, it's last few years.
Right.
Yeah. No, I think it's fascinating. And I think I'm assuming sort of that the idea of kind of calling upon real life experiences is potentially something that's going to feature in the workshop as well.
It very much is. What
Yeah.
I talk about to my students at Roehampton University and my coachees one to one is we have our imagination, we have our memory, we have our observations about the world, our questions about the world, and I'm saying it over and over again, ours. You could have somebody having exactly the same experience or exactly the same idea, if you will. I am never going to see two stories written the same way, two
Mm.
different people. It's not going to happen. So, a lot of the confidence side of writing coaching, which is absolutely fundamental to it, is about recognizing when the thoughts get in your way of, oh, I shouldn't do that. And what would so and so think? Well, you'll never know that unless you go, oh, hello, that thought. Have a nice little armchair, sit down over there. Don't try and get rid of it. It's not going to go.
Yeah, yeah.
But be aware that you can get on with your life while you are thinking that.
Mm.
Get through that, get to the end of your first draft, then edit.
Yeah.
I have lost decades to editing things I haven't written yet. You think you're
Yeah.
doing it really sensibly up here. You're not. Think on the paper.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. And to pick up on the coaching side of things that we're talking about there, just wonder if there were sort of particular things that you and I probably were similar. You things that you may notice in writers or kind of common things that people say or feel as writers. And it's really fascinating. There's so much that I find that is shared among writers in terms of emotions and thoughts. I don't know if you find that as well.
Here is the
Right.
one that
Yeah.
I think is at the bottom of all of the other ones. And this is unpublished and published writers alike.
Mm.
Oh, I'm not a real writer. So and so is a real writer. And you can just bet that so and so is thinking, oh, I'm not a real writer. So and so is a real writer. We all do this to ourselves. We all write. It's editing things you haven't written yet. We all create just such believable narratives about how somebody else is doing it better or correctly. And the closer you get to anyone, the more you know they're doing it too.
Mm.
And coaches are no different because coaches are also absolutely normal human beings. We're all doing it at some level.
Mm.
But the difference is the noticing. When I said about give that thought a comfy chair over there, that's what I'm talking about. I get these feelings every day of my life and I recognize them and I carry on.
Yeah, yeah. So it's kind of imposter syndrome is the word that gets used, isn't it? Is that sort of a
Yeah,
good fit, do you think?
it is. And something else that's very important to me as a writer and a coach, and I have had the opposite of this happen to me, and I think the damage that we get through the wrong kind of response can be very useful as we progress, is I don't tell somebody just about where their writing is now, or my holy opinion of where their writing is now. It's all about where it's going towards. Now, I have had a couple of quite high up people, not I would have to say in the ghost story community, but just essentially say there isn't anything in there without asking where it's going. And that is more about them than about you. If they need to do you down from their position of great height, that's just because they haven't worked out that the insecurity they feel everyone else feels too, which is very much their problem, not yours. Feedback on writing and how that works is deeply important, because you have to stay with the curiosity that I mentioned. It's all about getting a writer curious. They will keep going if they're curious, not if they feel judged, but if they go, I wonder what's around the next corner. Oh, and I wonder what's around the next corner.
Fantastic stuff. Thank you. Very last question I was going to ask. Obviously, like, you know, ghost stories are something that you're very interested in. I was just going to ask if there were any ghost stories kind of for you that were formative, that sort of started to get you into the field. Anything sort of leapt out?
I do have a favourite. I don't know that it got me into the field, but Signal by John Lanchester, which was reprinted in Reality and Other Stories, which I think is possibly the best title of anything ever. When did that come out? It's fairly recent, last couple of years. But that collection is excellent. And in terms of what a ghost story is and what an assumption is, because in order for your assumptions about the world to be challenged, the scary thing about that is you realize you make assumptions all the time. He does that beautifully. I'm not going to say anything about the plot, either of that or of anything in that collection. I will just say go and read that.
Fantastic. So, sort of alternative ghost story, a slightly different take.
Oh, it's a ghost story, but try to forget that I've said that when you start reading it.
Right. Okay. No problems. No problems.
No spoilers.
No, not in the least. It's fantastic stuff. On that note, we shall leave it there. So thanks so much for your time today, Rachel. Really lovely chat. Look forward to seeing you at the Ghost Story Festival. Look forward to your workshop that's booking up really well. Also on the writing short ghost stories panel as well, kicking us off on Saturday events. Should be a really exciting one. Thanks so much for everything. I look forward to seeing you there.
Thank you. See you then.
Thank you, Rachel. It's kind of I'll do. Oh, there you go.
Oh,
I'll always do a quick intro, so I'll sort of try and come.
Have you pressed that? Yeah, that's fine, because we can just cut that bit out. But have it given you an permission?
Yes, it has. Yeah.
Fabulous. Yeah. Okay, all good.
Okay. So if I hit got it, are we then like
yes,
live?
Then
we're recording already. Okay, right, no worries.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know how to cut stuff, but anyway.
That's okay.
Yeah.
I think the best way to do it is say, Mark, could you do this? Because he does it professionally, whereas I just go, where's the button again?
I'm sure.
But I'm sure we can do that.
Sure, it can be done. Sure, it can be done.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Let's go then. Okay. So professional intro incoming.